Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Mentor Minutes podcast, a board gaming podcast, also associated with the YouTube channel Meeple Mentor. I'm Jared.
And I'm Jay.
And we're back with another episode, and we're doing a top 10 list because everybody loves to hear our opinions on things.
Because they're the best.
For some reason.
I mean, come on.
I don't know.
What other top 10 list would anyone else rather listen to than ours? Seriously.
Well, I don't know, but it's certainly fun for us making these lists.
It is.
And,
it is a lot of fun, actually.
I let Jay, of course, kind of take the reins on our topics and that sort of thing. So every time he texts me a new topic, I'm like, that's crap, or this is exciting.
I don't get too many vetoes, so we do all right. We do, but a lot of these ideas were yours earlier on too, so I'm just picking through. So we collaborate. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know what he's trying to say, or rather imply, is that if you don't like the topic, it's my
Jared's fault.
fault.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Fair
the
enough.
blame is squarely on Jared's.
Fair enough.
So what's our top 10 list tonight?
Yeah, so this was a really tough list because I came up with like so many choices.
Yeah.
So many, like 20 something choices.
So it's funny because we also recently did our top abstract games.
Yes.
And I actually got a lot more of those than I did with these. And I think part of it is I've played a decent amount of IP games, but there's a lot that I know about that I've not actually played.
So this list is the top 10 licensed games.
Yes.
That are part of a intellectual property,
right.
An IP.
Right. And this is, maybe this is a technical question, but when you think of an IP game, do you automatically go to like TV or movies when you think of them, or because I will say some of mine might be based on like fictional characters in books, for example.
You know what? I made a list that incorporated all of that.
Okay.
From TVs to books to movies, but my final list has quite a bit of book references. Probably more so than movies.
Interesting. I would say, I'd say for me, mine's probably more popular media, like video, like TV shows, movies, that kind of thing. Yeah, I'd say the majority of mine are definitely.
So I'm counting
some sort of visual media.
About 6 of mine are book related.
Oh wow! Yeah, I think maybe 2 of mine are. So.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I was quite surprised.
That will be interesting.
Because again, I came up with like over 20 of these, and I could have come up with even more, but I'm like, okay, I gotta narrow this down to 10.
Well, the sad part about my list is my 2 honorable mentions are actually my 2 favorite IPs.
Really?
But I have not played the games.
Oh.
So they probably would have made it.
But you got to play the game to put it on the list.
Yeah, so I can't just do it because of the hype. So
sure.
I went with what I actually own and what I've played. So
I get that. And that's an important distinction is when we make our lists, we only put games on our list that we've played, or I've played, or he's played.
Yeah.
But if you listen to our podcast, a lot of the time he's played games I haven't played. I've played games he hasn't played.
Right.
So
we may not have a whole lot of crossover on this list.
I don't know if we will. It's going to be a crapshoot, honestly, because I had so many wild,
it's funny too. There was almost a game that I put on that, although they don't claim the IP, like they clearly are.
Yeah,
but there's probably one would make your list in that.
That's a good point. And
so I didn't include that either.
I didn't include anything that like vaguely references a different IP that they wish they were.
Yes, yeah, like
because that doesn't really qualify.
So I'll just call mine out. Mine was Dinosaur Island, which is pretty much like Jurassic Park.
Sure, but it's not.
But it's not.
So you can't put it on the list.
And Nemesis would be yours.
Nemesis,
which is aliens.
Essentially, it's an alien game without the IP.
Yeah,
and that's why it's not on the list.
Although if you played it and you didn't tell anybody the names, they would absolutely say that's Jurassic Park or that's aliens. But
exactly.
All right, so
that's the caveat for this list, and there will be quite a few honorable mentions, at least from my side.
Yeah, I only have a couple. Like I said,
and I came prepared though. If you look, the shirt I'm wearing is an IP themed board game crossover. So it says Star Meeple, and it's got the Star Trek little arrow.
Okay, that's cool.
And a little Meeple being beamed up onto kind of a cylindrical ship.
Now, is that one you found, or is that a Mr. Meeple shirt?
This is Mr. Meeple.
Okay, Mr. Meeple. He makes awesome board game themed shirts.
There's a shout out to our good buddy over at Meeple, Mr. Meeple.
Yeah, and I have several of the shirts too, so they're awesome.
Yeah. But,
and I do have a Star Wars themed one too. So
all right.
cool. So why don't we dive right in with our number 10?
Sounds good.
Number 10.
My number 10 is a deck building game with one of my favorite IPs, and that is Harry Potter.
No.
Yes, and this is Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle.
That's really funny.
And so this game is one where it's a very beginner-based deck building game where you'll start as two of the different characters in the Harry Potter series, and you're actually going to play through like 7 different years of Hogwarts with another partner, so it's a cooperative game, and you're going to be playing cards to...
or more.
Or more, yeah, up to 4 players, right? That's right. Yeah, I've only played this at 2, actually. But you can play up to 4 players.
It's difficult.
You try to, you have a villain for each year that you're at Hogwarts, and you're basically playing cards to kind of defeat the villain without being defeated yourself, and you're able to essentially get different tokens that upgrade your abilities, get you to enable yourself to get more cards, which end up being different characters in the game that give you special abilities. Just a really fun family theme type game built around Harry Potter.
But quite difficult.
But it can be very hard because especially as you get, like after you get through like year 3 or 4, it definitely ramps the difficulty up.
Yes.
But definitely a great game you can introduce to new players, and the theme can pull people in. It's a very affordable game, even though you get some really great components, and the game itself looks like it's one of those, like the Harry Potter suitcases and stuff that he brought with him to Hogwarts. So really, really fun game. Harry Potter Hogwarts Battle. There's also a version of this game that's themed to Toy Story IP that I've heard is really good as well.
That's the one I have.
That's what you have. Okay.
I actually like it better.
I've heard a lot of people say that. I've never played the Toy Story one, but
I like it better because it's not as punishing.
Oh, okay.
And I just like Toy Story
I
better
can see that
than
with
Harry
the Toy
Potter.
Story theme. That would make sense. So yeah, I think you can't go wrong with either of those games in either of those, themes. Both of which are IP themes.
Yeah.
So that's why I made my number 10.
Cool. My number 10 is going to be, I think this is a game that has the most likely chance of being a crossover.
I thought maybe that one was going to be, but yeah.
No. So this is, and we've mentioned it quite a few times on our podcast, and I've got a tutorial for it on the channel. And this is The Godfather Corleone's Empire. This is such an underrated game. I really recommend people try this thing. It's a great, like, just slightly more complex than gateway game, but you could still use it as a gateway game.
I think so.
Because people are really interested and eager to play it when they see it. It's people are familiar with the movies and familiar with the storyline and the idea of like trying to control a gang in New York and killing each other's players during the game is just a fun prospect of doing this. In some of the jobs that you complete, when spending resource cards is, you can assassinate people, and then their actual piece gets removed from the board and put onto the river,
like face down in the Hudson.
That's correct. That's where they go. Now they'll come back in the next act because there's 4 acts that also mimic the main like sequences of the film, just the first movie. But it's easy to get to the table because of that, and I think it's complex enough that there's a lot of strategy to this, and there's a lot of hidden information as far as how much money you can put into your metal suitcase and the jobs you're starting to acquire. I mean, everything that you do is public at one point or another, but keeping track of what everyone's keeping in their suitcase is a whole other deal. You just can't. And so the only thing that counts at the end of the game is the stuff that you're able to stash away. Anything in your hand pretty much is worthless until you can find a way to get it in your suitcase. And that's either taking an action that puts money there or taking the action of completing a job, and that spends your resource cards. And it's resources like blood, money, booze, guns, drugs. So it's not necessarily kid appropriate because of the theme.
But also with the artwork, it's family. I'd say it's family friendly enough with the artwork to where
Like,
you don't have to worry too much about, if you have 12-year-old kids or older. It's
yeah,
no,
I mean,
no
I'd say
problem.
if they're like 10 or older, they could probably handle
Yeah.
it. But I mean, as a parent, it's up to what you want to expose them to.
Yeah.
But the way they make it, I feel like it's not very overtly
Yeah, it's
bad.
maybe more cartoony when it
Inappropriate.
comes to,
A little bit.
it's kind of comical when you're like
Yeah.
taking out a whole block and you got a bunch of these little
Yeah.
miniatures laying down in the river. And stuff
Yeah,
like
like, I mean, how many other games can, you've played with kids and it's like, oh, I killed your guy, like,
that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's on my list, and I
great.
think it's great.
Yeah. I love that game.
Number 9.
My number 9 pick is a really popular at this point, kind of old school board game. One of the earlier cooperative games that people have played, and that's Shadows over Camelot. And this is totally based on the IP of the Arthurian legends, and a lot of people forget that that's a book series.
Oh, yeah, I never even think of this as an IP game.
I know.
That's a great pick.
It's completely an IP
That's
game.
a really good pick.
Shadows over Camelot.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't love that, right?
Yeah.
So cooperatively, it's a very difficult game, and if you haven't played it at this point, essentially you've got different boards actually that kind of attach to your center where the Camelot castle is, and you can either on your turn draw an evil card or a danger card.
It's like you progress good and you progress evil,
that
or
sort of
something,
thing.
but it's just a white deck and a black deck, I think.
But you have to draw one of those or add a siege engine to the front of the castle where they're going to attack. And either the game will end either when all the siege engines kind of get played out and surround the castle, or basically the number of black swords versus white swords is outnumbered.
Yes.
And essentially by failing any of these missions that are found on these boards, a black sword comes out onto the round table. But by completing these missions, in favor of the knights, which everyone's a knight, everyone's working together, completing them adds a white sword to that table. So you're trying to get, I think there's like 12 spots. You're trying to get 7 at least.
Yeah, by the time the game ends.
By the time that they're siege engines or whatnot.
It's not like an instant win condition. It's kind of like by the time the game ends. So it can end different ways, but yeah, it's tricky.
It's a co-op, but there is a great way to play where you can have a traitor who is intentionally trying to sabotage these missions.
The best way to play.
I definitely agree that you need to have the traitor in every game you play, and basically you just deal out a roll card and have one of the players is going to be a traitor, and I just think it's a lot of fun when you're pointing blame. It's like, I promise I didn't have anything. I promise I couldn't play a card that would have helped.
Yeah, I'm only discarding these face down,
right.
Just because I'm trying to help everybody. But
right. Because there's that where you can discard face down to draw more, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Or you can discard them face up to draw less. But it's like, are you doing that because you don't want us to know what you're getting rid of?
Yeah, and it is definitely one of my favorite co-ops, so I really like this one a lot.
So Shadows over Camelot.
Yeah, awesome pick. Okay, my number 9 is a Batman themed game.
Cool. I love Batman.
But it's not the Batman themed game that you might think of. It's actually a small card game called Batman Love Letter.
Love Letter. Yep.
Yeah,
I knew it. I knew you were gonna pick this.
I like Love Letter. I think Love Letter is a great, quick game that has a really cool mechanisms where you're trying to uncover different characters to try to be sort of the last person standing type of mechanic. And although it's a weirdly named, Batman Love Letter,
but I really want to play this.
Yeah, the theme of the game is great because you have a Batman card and a Joker card and a Robin card, and essentially you're trying to do the same thing as in regular Love Letter. But what I like about this is if you call out the right person, like if you get exactly right, you get a bat symbol token, and those tokens are what ultimately let you win the game. Mm-hmm. So it's a slight tweak on regular Love Letter, where you only get like sort of that token if you win the game. That lets the game go a little bit quicker. It gives you a little bit more strategy to go after. And to me, it just adds a little bit extra layer. So most of the game is unchanged from Love Letter. It still, I think, plays only 4 players. But because of that, I think there's one extra card, which may be the Bane card that's in this game.
I
which
will break you, Batman.
Yeah, it represents, I think, one of the expansion cards, like in a later version of Love Letter. But really cool comic book type artwork as well. This one is out of print, so it's hard to find. It's very
Rare.
expensive. I used to own it. Actually ended up giving it to a friend of mine as a sort of a parting gift when I was leaving New England, but because he's a huge Batman fan.
Man.
But yeah, he'll get a lot of or has gotten a lot of enjoyment out of it. And there are people who make some like print and play versions of this that you can find on BGG if you really want a Batman themed love letter game. So for that reason, number 9, Batman love letter.
That's a great pick. I'm glad Batman made the list in some fashion.
Yes. Had to get Batman in there somehow.
Nice. Number 8.
My number 8 is a fairly recent series of games that take place in the Funkoverse.
Oh,
and
wow.
they are Funkoverse strategy games.
Wow.
These are all IP-based games. They're sort of like, I would say, tactical skirmish-based games. You're usually playing like two characters against 2 characters or 3 against 3. And they have themed packs, so you can play, Jurassic Park version of this game where you're playing, the raptors against, the scientists, or you can play a Batman themed game with Catwoman, Batman, Joker, etc. But there's a lot of add-ons, so you can get a lot of extra characters.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a lot of standalone packs that you can mix in, like Darkwing Duck, which I got that one. The Kool-Aid guy, like just a lot of stuff from, iconic sort of
pop culture,
really.
Right.
Which is what Funko Pop's all about.
Pop.
Yeah, and this is a family weight sort of skirmish game, so it's pretty light on rules, but all the characters have special abilities. It's got a really unique sort of recharge mechanism for the weapons. So once you've used the special weapon or ability, it goes into this kind of cooling pile and then kind of works its way back to recharging. So it's really just a all around solid set of games. You can pick these up really cheap at Target. So if you're looking for something that's got a great theme, they even have like Jaws and all kinds of stuff now. Pick up your favorite sort of looking themed game. They all play very similar, and then just mix and match them and have a good time. So
that's cool.
Funkoverse strategy game, my number 8.
Yeah, I haven't played any of these yet. I don't know. I never got into Funko Pops type stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, for what you're getting for the price, like you can find these for like $10 sometimes.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting like an actual like two or 3 or 4 little Funko characters.
Sure.
So
I know those have really
quality,
spiked up in popularity.
Yeah,
people love collecting those. So.
Yeah, good quality and a lot of variety.
Cool. My number 8 is also based on a book, and this is a great one versus everyone game, and that's called Treasure Island. And you've got Long John Silver, who has hidden his treasure somewhere on the board. It's a huge dry erase board, and he has to slowly, throughout the game, like one at a time, give you some kind of clue to help narrow down eventually where the treasure is. And so players have their own board that they can kind of make notes or draw, or even X out areas that they've determined the treasure isn't. Sometimes the information Long John Silver gives is public information. Sometimes it's private information. And you have to move your piece, your character, to where the treasure is. And if they do, then, they win.
They win the game.
And that's pretty much it. Or if enough time passes and Long John Silver wins because no one found his treasure. Because Long John is, at first, he's not on the board, but then I think after like 6-7 turns, he enters the board on one of the prisons on the map. And then from there, that player slowly has to get Long John to his treasure.
Okay.
And so you want to do that in a way that doesn't make it too obvious
which way you're going,
because you use these varying size rulers, these like ruler pieces.
Yeah. Do you have like protractors or compasses or something?
There's protractors, there's rulers, and so you can specifically go a certain distance and a straight line. And so if you're Long John Silver, you're trying to get to your treasure, but you also don't want to like beeline straight there, because then you're pointing at it, and then everyone's like, "Oh, well, that
it's obviously there."
And then that kind of helps me narrow down because I thought it was there and all that.
Yeah.
And so then it's a race to get there, but you don't want it to be obvious. So.
Yeah, this is one I've always wanted to play. Haven't had a chance to play.
It's really fun.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. 3 or 4 players. I think it's up to 5 even, but it's a lot of fun.
Plus, it has awesome artwork by Vincent Dutrait, so it looks gorgeous as well.
There you go.
Cool. Good pick.
Treasure
I like
Island.
it. I like it.
Number 7.
My number 7 is a game that's also fairly new, although it's a remake of a Star Wars themed game.
A remake of Star Wars.
Yes,
things.
but it's not Star Wars.
Okay.
And it's called Unmatched.
Yeah.
So Unmatched is a new series of games by Restoration Games that pits different characters from all kinds of different universes together to fight in a 1-versus-1 combat style type game. And typically, most of the games you'll have 2 characters. Typically, so you might have things from lore, like say Bigfoot, fighting other monsters, or you'd have things from literature like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
or movies like Buffy the Vampire Slayer,
That's a
or
TV
Jurassic
show.
Park, or TV show. That's right. Oh, did they make the movies?
I think they did make a movie.
Maybe they did.
But it's definitely a TV show.
Yeah, and but you also have Deadpool. You have all kinds of different characters.
Marvel. The Jurassic Park had its own.
Yeah, Jurassic
recently.
Park. What are some of the other ones? I've played a bunch of different ones.
One is like the Cobblestone something.
It's called Cobble and Fog,
Cobble
and that's
Fog.
the one that has Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and the Invisible Man, and there's Dracula and all that stuff.
Looked like Jack the Ripper on the front.
I think, Jack the Ripper, I think, is another character. You're right. You're right. But you can mix and match all these different characters in any game because you play with a deck of cards.
I had the Raptors fighting Deadpool.
That's right. Deadpool always lost, too.
That was funny.
He's one of the funner characters to play.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they've ever made any of these games that aren't really good. I've never heard.
Solid.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody that doesn't like this type of game. And there's a whole collective of people on Board Game Geek that actually will create decks of cards for fictional characters for this game.
Wow.
So you can even go out and like 3D print, the Smurfs, and play with a Smurf deck, and that kind of thing. All that kind of stuff. So really cool IP game. It's actually to me a better game than the Funkoverse games, although it feels very similar in a lot of ways. Because there's just a little bit more strategy.
Is there a Jaws one? Like, I'd love to see Bruce the Shark like running around.
I was gonna say, I don't think there is a Jaws one, but I think they've made a fan version of Jaws.
I'm gonna have to find that. That's really funny.
Yeah, my buddy PJ has a bunch of the fan versions of different themed decks.
I love that
stuff.
movie.
But it's a great game. Really good, and that's Unmatched. My number 7.
Yep. My number 7 is also based on a book, and I haven't read it, but it's called The Pillars of the Earth.
I thought this would be on your list.
Totally is. Yep. This game is amazing. It's a worker placement game, and it has some unique mechanisms to it where you draw everyone's workers one at a time from a bag, and then depending on the order that these come out, you can either choose to pay the amount that your piece would be on, or pass, and then you'll come back around for free once everyone's kind of been drawn or taken their turns. And so the most expensive spot obviously is the first piece that's drawn out. It's 7 coins or whatever to be able to go first. Or you can say, I'll pass. So he sits there, and then the next one comes out from a bag, and then that's $6. It's is $6 worth it to you to be the first worker out on the board? And so all of this happens until everyone's placed, I think, all 3 of your workers. And then no one resolves any actions at that point. All you're doing is sort of taking up these spaces. And then once all this is done, then all the actions are done in a numbered order, like a sequence. And it just kind of starts at the top right of the board and goes down and then around the edges and then to the direct center. And so there's, you're collecting resources like stone, sand, and wood. And you're also collecting cards during the game, like craftsmen, to help your exchange rate. Because what you want to do is exchange resources at the best ratio you can to get points. And essentially, at the end of every round, you add a new piece to the church. And there's 5 pieces, 6 pieces,
something like that.
And basically,
you're building the cathedral or whatever.
You're literally building it out of wooden blocks. But I think the really fun part is you're building this, and it's also a time tracker. Because once the last piece is placed, that's the end of the game. Because you seriously are building something together, but doing it, more effectively or not, which gives you points. The money is always really tight in this game, and it's tough to get certain resources sometimes because there's also a like a bidding type of thing on getting those resource cards that let you get those resources that round. So there's different phases like that, but I want to shout out the artwork because the game looks beautiful.
Michael Menzel.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, it's just fantastic to look at. It's just one of those
It's like
games.
a painted board. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's really,
you just want to stare at it, and it's just great. I love this. It's fun. It's based on the book. So there you go. Top 10 IP.
Yeah, Pillars of the Earth. I really, I've only played this once with you. I own this one. I have a feeling this will move up as I play it more.
Right.
This is one I wanted to actually introduce to my wife as well.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna make a comparison with this one. I'm gonna
Okay.
take a little aside here and see
All
what
right.
you think about this. So this game reminds me of like Stone Age on steroids, and I'll tell you why I think that. One, it's the same artist, so the look of the game, it feels very similar as far as the art style. Second, it's a game where you're placing all your workers first, and then you in Stone Age you take the workers off before you do the actions. So that's kind of similar. And then you're also building things. With Stone Age you're building buildings and huts, whereas this you're building parts of the cathedral. So it feels to me like if you introduce Stone Age to someone and they get really good at it, and they've kind of gone beyond the gateway stage, this would be a great, to me, next step to introduce them to. Because, I don't know, there's something about this game that just gives me kind of that feel a little bit. I don't know why, but it just does.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, and it definitely adds a lot of gameplay and,
much more strategic, yeah.
Definitely more strategy and more steps to it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're doing is very similar.
Yeah.
I can say that.
And there's also an expansion for this game that is like impossible to get. Impossible. And the thing is, the game is still in print. They never have reprinted this expansion, which I've heard is great.
Yeah.
And it also extends the board, so the artwork looks amazing on it too.
Yeah.
You can find like German copies of it and stuff.
I think it's like the most in-demand expansion.
It's got to be up there.
And there's like none.
Yeah, I really want this expansion so bad. Just because it, I heard it just adds a lot to the game too.
Well, if you can get a copy, we were going to definitely play this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, one of these days.
Number 6. Moving on, my number 6 pick is a game that is it's a deck builder, but you also have miniatures for your characters, and there's cardboard like tiles that you can go to with your miniature, and this is based on a TV show, an anime rather. It's Cowboy Bebop Space Serenade.
You like this one, yeah?
I just I think it captures the show really well. I like the artwork. I like the feel of the game. I like the combos that you can do when you play, this character's card, and then you play this card after that. And because you played this other character before, you get the bonus of this other one you're playing. It is a deck builder, so you're buying new cards which go into your deck that are all based on different characters and different things that they can do. But because of the way that those combos work, is you want kind of a variable amount, like you want a little bit of everybody's cards into your deck for the color variance. Essentially was what helps you with maxing out what your deck can do. You track your energy. You have to spend energy to like move between the Bebop ship to different planets. There's 3 planets in the game. And you have currency, and essentially even though you're on a team together, you're competing to see who can get the most contracts, because you're bounty hunters. And so whoever can do that, and then of course knock out the final boss, you get the most points. So you're collecting basically like these reward value points, like this contract was worth that, this contract's worth this. But I just think it's really cool. It's a unique mix of like deck building and strategy of like moving to different places and spending things to get stuff.
Yeah. This is one, I don't know anything about the IP or the game.
Oh.
I mean, I've heard the name, obviously, but never seen an episode or...
Well, as of this airing, there's the Cowboy Bebop show on both Hulu and Netflix, and Netflix just started a live-action Cowboy Bebop.
I've heard some people talking about that, and they've got kind of mixed feelings. I Have you
Well,
seen the live action one?
I haven't yet, but
Okay.
I think people who are familiar with the cartoon or the anime, I shouldn't say cartoon.
Yeah,
I don't want to
yep.
offend anybody.
Yep.
Um, but who are familiar with the anime say that a lot of it is very like they're trying to make shots look like they were in the show.
Mm-hmm.
You
That's
know,
hard to do.
yeah.
I'm sure.
And I think the casting, from what it looked like, is really good. It's doing really well. So I definitely want to check it out. My wife is a bigger Cowboy Bebop fan than I am, so she would be able to point out more of that kind of thing than I would. But I like it, so I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah,
at some point.
Cool. Super cool. I know we're gonna play this one at some point too.
Yeah,
so.
I like this a lot.
Yeah,
I'll probably never sell this.
Yeah, I'd give this one a shot. So I like it.
What's your number 6?
So this is one I might get some grief on this. I'm not sure because
Please do.
This is kind of So the game is actually set in Dungeons and Dragons universe, which Dungeons and Dragons was certainly started as a game. It's a made up IP, but
Aren't all IPs made up?
Yeah, but it's like because it was a game IP, I kind of wasn't sure. But this is actually not a Dungeons and Dragons game per se. It's actually Lords of Waterdeep.
Well, yeah.
So it's a worker placement game that has the theming of a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I guess is how
I guess we didn't really clarify if the IP could be another game.
Yeah, that's where I was kind of dancing that line a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love Lords of Waterdeep. It's a great intro worker placement game. Still holds up to this day. It's and that's in spite of the fact that the art isn't that great on the board. It's a little bland looking.
It's like all beige.
It's very beigey, very kind of dingy looking. But as the game progresses, you're sort of building. You're putting out more building spots, which end up being additional worker placement spots. So it starts to come together and looks pretty good at the end. And this one, the theme to me really doesn't matter with this game because it's really about just collecting different resources to turn into complete quests. And because those resources happen to be a mage or a rogue or whatever, I don't really care. It's just purple and a white cube.
Give me a purple, give me a white. That's all.
Or whatever.
Doesn't matter.
And yeah, there is some like flavor text on the quest cards. It describes you're breaking into a building or this and that. But really, you're just collecting resources to turn in to get points. Game is made a lot better with the Scoundrels of Skullport expansion, which is to me elevates this game from like a 7 to maybe a 8.5, 9. Really good expansion that I would always opt to play with. But yeah, Lords of Waterdeep still a classic, still in print, still one I would highly recommend as a worker placement game. And that's what made my number 6.
So if you're listening and you think that that game is disqualified,
let me know.
Because it's based on another game, let us know.
Yeah, I was kind of going back and forth on that one, but it made my list either way. So
yeah, all right. Number 5.
My number 5 is a 2-player worker placement game, which is kind of rare, actually. I mean, if you think it's 2-player only. It's not super well known, but it's by a company, Devere, who is really popular right now for a game called Red Cathedral.
Right.
And I like this game better than Red Cathedral, actually.
Really?
It's called Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft.
Oh, yeah. You have told me about this.
And it is a... so the theme is that you are Sherlock Holmes, and the other player is Mycroft Holmes. So they're brothers. And you're solving a crime in London. And each of the worker placement spots is a character that you're interviewing, a witness to this crime, and you're trying to interview them, which essentially putting your worker there gives you a special action or ability. But then it's used up, and so the other player can't go there. And you're basically earning these clue tokens, which you can then trade in for basically different types of clues that really make up this set collection part of the game that you ultimately earn points for. So whoever does the best job of getting clues and collecting a lot of this evidence in these different suits, essentially, because the cards are numbered like 8s and 9s and stuff like that, wins the game. It's a really clever game because the cards that you play that are the worker placement spots, you start out with just 3, and they each represent a different day. And so as the round ends, a new card comes out, and they're all in random order. So you never know which spot is going to come out and in what order. So every game has a ton of variety. Just a really clever worker placement game that I haven't heard a whole lot of people talk about.
No, not really.
Yeah, a friend of mine introduced this to me, and man, it's up there for one of my top 2-player games.
Nice.
So that made my number 5 Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft.
Excellent. Definitely one to check out.
Yeah, it's neat if you can find this one.
So my number 5 is it's a deck building game, and it has actually several versions of it in various themes. It's Legendary Encounters, and I'm going to go with the Alien theme because that's my favorite.
Yep.
Certainly there's Marvel, and I think a 007 one, and probably others.
A couple others, yeah.
But the Alien deck building game is definitely what I like, and I'm a big horror movie fan, and Alien is one of my favorites. That and Jaws, as you can tell from our conversation. In this game, up to 4 players can work together to try to play through like the scenario of one of the 4 movies, or Covenant if you got that expansion. And there's various objectives that you have to play through in order to basically complete it. There's the first, middle, and last, and you don't necessarily get to see them until you complete the one before it. And you draw cards off the top that are they're pretty much going to be aliens, and very, very unlikely it's not, but it can be. But they get face down onto this the top area. If you reveal it based on paying the attack cost of where its position is on that track, you can flip it over and then attempt to try to kill it with more of your attack. And it stays face up, so any other player on their turn can also then try to attack it if it's still there. But these things do come out every turn, so the one that you drew will stay in maybe 4 rounds, 5 rounds, so you might see it one more time before it either got killed or like kind of comes out and its bad thing starts actually affecting people. And so that's tough because you have to kill the things that are actually doing harm to you as a group, and you also have to stop bad things from coming that are going to do even worse things. Plus there's the objectives that you have to accomplish, and so you're doing all of this while paying a different currency to gain new cards, and everyone's got their own deck that they're building. They're working together. There is a unique aspect where there's certain cards that are cooperative, and so if I play one of those cards, other players who also have that card in their hand can play it out of turn.
They combo up.
And they combo up together and basically allow for a much bigger turn for that person. And so that's a really fun aspect to this. And even though it's based on the Alien movies and everything, I do like the artwork on here because it's not just taken straight from the film. They're not screenshots. They're actually artwork that someone has taken time to draw and paint and all that stuff. And they're just really interesting to look at. It's almost like having a comic book, that you're slowly uncovering through all the different cards that you see. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty it.
Yeah,
pretty much it.
This is one I've really wanted to play. Haven't had a chance to yet, and also plays good solo. I've heard.
Yeah, I have played this so many times solo. It is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I definitely would try this one. I'd probably gravitate more to like the James Bond theme personally, but I have heard this is maybe the best of the different versions of the
That's what I've heard too. But I mean, I got it and stopped with it. The first Encounters one that I did play was Marvel, and I said, okay, I get it. This makes sense. But then I played Alien, and I was like, not only is, for me, the theme awesome, but I liked the hidden mechanism there that, you have to flip them up to find them. And then they also have like the strike deck, which you have to deal with when they do a certain number of attacks. Okay. So anyway, that's my pick.
Yeah, sounds cool.
Number 4. My number 4 pick is also based on a book and technically also a movie, and that is Fury of Dracula.
Okay, I thought this might be on your list.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, I don't know, but it's called Fury of Dracula. There's been 4 editions now. I did a tutorial on the channel for the 4th edition, which is currently the latest edition because it has all the pre-painted miniatures and updated art, bigger board, all that kind of stuff. I own the 2nd edition, which is still great. It's essentially the same game anyway. But it's a one versus many game. One player is Dracula and just basically roaming around the just Europe and everywhere in the countryside and trying to build up his evil influence. And the other players are vampire hunters, and they have special abilities. But you also can collect items and companions, or I think they're just called allies, that help you to move or attack or share or what have you. So you got these other 4 hero characters, if you will, and they're moving around trying to find Dracula. And Dracula, basically on his turn, will he has to place another face down location card on his track, and then they slowly kind of come off that track. And then players start to see, oh, okay, he was there 6 turns ago or something. And then, slowly they can see what path you were taking and maybe get an idea for where you might be.
Yeah.
And once there's any point where they are together in the same spot, then a couple of rounds of combat happen until someone either dies or is able to escape combat. It's a really fun game. It does take a while to play, and there are a lot of rules to get through, which is why I made a tutorial, because it's so good, and I think a lot of people just need to play it. And it's been around forever. Like I said, 4 editions, and so it has a lot of staying power based on Dracula. So
yeah, like this one a lot. I've only played this the one time that we played it together, so I definitely need to get more plays into this. But had a blast playing this game. It's like a kind of like Scotland Yard on steroids, so super thematic, really cool theming. Totally get why you had this one on your list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like it.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is, I think, our first crossover, and that is The Godfather, Corleone's Empire.
I call it.
I've had this on other lists as well. I think this was both of us had this on our
underrated list.
Yeah, hidden gems type list.
Yeah.
Same thing as you. It's a great Eric Lang game. It just, for some reason, doesn't, I don't know why, never got the love. It's got a great theme. It's very affordable. It's got miniatures. The way I rank a lot of Eric Lang's games is I'm kind of like Blood Rage, and then I like Rising Sun, and then I like this one.
Really?
I mean, it's like that kind of order. So it feels like a lighter version of, like Rising Sun and Blood Rage in a way. You can kind of tell it's got a lot of the same DNA, but it's very approachable theme, easy to teach, and the progression of the rounds is kind of really, really clearly marked on the boards.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's a unique game because a lot of what you're doing is area control, which gives you points near the end of the game especially, but a lot of the reason why you're doing the area control is to get different items to do missions and to score. But it's got set collection in it as well. It's got area control. It's got a lot of theme, a lot of kind of take that tough type stuff. But it's the kind of game where nobody really feels ganged up on because
ganged up on.
Yeah, unintended pun.
Because you're gangs.
Yeah, but because if you're wiped off the board because someone wants a primo spot, well, they're probably the next person that's going to get like the shot through the drive-by shooting or whatever it is. So
your comeuppance comes quickly.
Yeah. So everybody's going to get attacked in this game, but it's part of the experience. Plays up fairly quickly. I mean, it can drag a little with maybe 5. I think it plays up to 5.
It does.
But awesome game, awesome IP. Godfather, Corleone's Empire. That's what made my number 4.
Number 3.
My number 3 is based on a video game IP.
Oh, does that count?
I think it counts.
Does it?
I think it is. I think so.
Can I guess what it is?
I think it might be on your list too.
Go ahead. Guess?
Yeah, guess.
Is it Mechs vs. Minions?
It's Mechs vs. Minions. This was an IP based on Riot Games. Not MMO. What is this one? It's a
MMORPG.
Yeah, it's like it. It's a big, massive multiplayer arena.
League of Legends.
Combat, League of Legends game. And Mechs vs. Minions takes characters from League of Legends. I think 4 different characters. And then it's a programming game where you've got a grid. You have a scenario that gets set up. You have different objectives and stuff on the board. And then you're drafting these cards that turn your mech different directions, make it move, make it fire different weapons. And you can not only program how it's going to work, but it's cooperative as well. So everybody's programming their own mechs to try to accomplish this specific goal. And you can get hosed a little bit because if you end your turn next to one of the minions, you're going to get a glitch that affects one of your sort of programming slots. Just a whole lot of fun. Really, really clever game. I like this one better than Robo Rally for programming games.
They're very similar, but one's cooperative, one's competitive.
Yeah, so, and I think that's why I like this one, because of the competitive nature. Right. Mechs versus Minions made my number 3, and really one of my favorite games of all time, I think.
I have played through the entire campain on this.
I haven't yet.
You haven't?
I've played about halfway through it, because I kind of tend to introduce it, so I'm always playing the initial scenarios with different people, but I do want to get this one back to the table.
Yeah, me and the Jasons played through it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I missed that one.
Yeah. That was before you came.
Oh, okay. See, I would have been hurt if it wasn't, after, because then it would have been like a secret society or something.
I guess.
Yeah. I would have been totally offended.
My number 3 pick is an IP based, well, it's a book.
Another book.
It's another book.
This should have been the top 10 games based on books.
It almost is. It almost is.
I don't know if I could come up with that many though.
It'd be the same list. So this is Robinson Crusoe Adventures on the Cursed Island.
Mm-hmm.
And this is notoriously difficult as one of the, very difficult to win cooperative games out there. Ignacy Trzewick.
I'm going to just say, I've heard it said Ignacy Trzewiczek. Treviz? Yeah. A very awesome Polish designer who's also the president of Portal Games.
Yeah. He's made some other great games like First Martians, Adventures on the Red Planet. But Robinson Crusoe, I think, is the one that everyone really loves. And it's the one that is often cited as probably the most popular, difficult cooperative games out there. And it's not really it's not a point against it, because if you play a cooperative game, it needs to be difficult. Like, you're working together, it needs to be something that you are not sure you're going to win every time.
Especially the game about survival.
Yeah.
Right.
So in the game, you start out on just this one tile, one side of the island, and you have to slowly explore your way out while collecting the resources you need to keep the roof over your head not leaking when there's rain and weather, because that's a die that gets rolled. You have to have like food to feed everybody. You need all these. You got to build palisades and all these walls around to protect you from other elements. There's hunting in it, where you have to go after nature. And the other big thing is that every day there's an event card that comes out that you have to deal with, and then it kind of sits around for another day or 2 days, and you have to kind of accomplish that, or if you don't, something bad happens when it gets knocked off, when like enough cycles it out, right? It involves a lot of dice rolling, and there's a lot of decks of cards in this game because of all the variable things that you can get. You can craft items. It's just very thematic. It definitely is very reminiscent of the book series, and it's just very popular. It's a well-made game, and I would recommend it.
Yeah, and this is one of those games I own and haven't played.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I even bought this used, so it has like the nice insert and all that.
So my copy is sitting right behind you. It's the original version, which looks like this.
Oh yeah, yep.
Is this the one you have?
I've got I think the newer one that's in the square box.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's got the new one. This is the original, and it's pretty old. It actually had this big dent in the corner when I bought it. It's not. I take care of my games, but that one, that's how it was, because it's an older game.
Yeah. Yeah. So for the podcast listeners, we're sitting actually with a shelf of Jared's games behind us. And so that one just happened to be right behind us.
Yep, within arm's reach. So
within arm's reach, yeah. So for our YouTube listeners, you'll be able to see it in high quality HD.
So that was my number 3. Number 2.
So we're moving up to our number 2 picks now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we might still have a crossover in here.
Yeah, another one?
I think we might have one. I'm not sure if it's this one, but it might be.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll go first.
Go ahead.
I know you mentioned Star Wars earlier.
Okay. Yes, I did.
This is a Star Wars game.
Okay.
And this is one of my favorite Star Wars games.
It's a 2-player game, primarily.
It's actually one of my favorite Star Wars games of almost any medium.
Okay. Wow.
And it's just that good. To answer your question, it's primarily played at 2 players,
Yep.
but you can play it at 3 or 4, and that is Star Wars Rebellion.
Yep.
It is Star Wars in a box for all intents and purposes. It takes up 2 full boards of your table, and it basically every planet in the known Star Wars universe is found on this board. And the rebels get to choose a secret hiding place, a secret, different planet to start. And then the Imperials have presence on quite a few planets and a ton of armies and ships and stormtroopers and all this kind of stuff all over the map. And they have to try to weed out where the rebels are and destroy their base or occupy it like without any of the rebels still there. So they have to kill everybody that's there or blow up the planet. You can actually have 2 Death Stars in this game.
Yeah, that was a pretty cool thing.
Which is really fun. There are certain special like objective cards that you can earn, and some of them let you build another Death Star. And there's this mechanism in the game where anything new you want to build comes out on a build track that's either on 1, 2, or 3, and at the end of the round, like these all slide down 1 space. So the things that are the biggest and most powerful of either ships or people, those are going to be on the 3, and then the 2s are medium, on how effective they are, and the 1s are going to be like the lowest things to get out, like stormtroopers or your basic infantry. So the longer it goes, the more powerful your stuff is. But there's objectives that you can complete. There's guys you can send from the movies that are they basically span all 3 of the original movies. Plus, there's an expansion that I do recommend where it adds the...
Is it Force Awakens?
Not Force Awakens, the prequel that they made.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you've got like Anakin as a younger...
No, not that prequel.
Oh.
Rogue One.
Okay, gotcha.
That prequel.
The actual prequel to the trilogy.
That's right.
Gotcha. The original trilogy.
Rogue One is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think Force Awakens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't think of the name of the expansion at this point, but it's fantastic. I have a tutorial for all of that on the channel if you want to know how to play or get refreshed to play again, because there are a lot of rules, but once you get going again, it's not hard to play. It's just sort of sometimes the setup is tricky or remembering some of the little rules here and there, but it's a blast. It's so good. This
may be the biggest 2-player table game I've seen. Like, it takes up a lot of space for a 2-player game.
Yeah, it does.
But it's epic. It's an epic game.
That's what you want, though.
Number 2? Yeah. I think that's deserving of number 2. I've only played it once again, so it's one of those games I can't really make a ruling on, but I definitely enjoyed my play of this one.
I've played quite a few times at this point.
Yeah, that's good. Right. This is the one where I thought might end up being a crossover. I'm not sure. This is actually based on a book. Surprisingly, H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay, yeah.
This is Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition.
There it is.
Yeah, so really, really enjoy this game a lot. I've got, I think, most of the expansions for 2nd Edition. It's an app-driven adventure-style / horror game set in H.P. Lovecraft's universe, where you're investigators, typically investigating a mansion or going through different adventures trying to solve the mystery in each of these different scenarios. And the app takes the role of the game master and runs everything for you. It facilitates a lot of the puzzles. It facilitates a lot of the actions
and setup
of the game. It's really just makes the game very easy to play and get into.
I think the only hard part is finding the tiles you need.
Yeah, that's a little it, because there's so much content for this game, and all the tiles that make up the areas you're exploring are double-sided. So that can definitely be tough if you don't keep those expansions.
That was my recollection. Was the game was great, but the hardest part is finding where.
Yeah, I think we played. We played a really cool scenario with a museum where we were trying to piece together a mystery. And what I love about the fact that this game is app driven is it lends itself to not just the horror genre, but it really, you can get scenarios that are like almost like Indiana Jones type adventure stories where you're exploring temples. There are games where it's sort of like a whodunit, where you're trying to figure out a crime, or you wake up in a town with no memory in jail and you're trying to figure out what happened to get you there. So really,
that's a good point. I think
really doesn't.
I think another designer would probably need to take this kind of idea in the implementation and do its own thing.
Well, I totally agree, and I think that and actually a game that didn't make my list but will be in my honorable mentions is based on this same exact engine that Fantasy Flight took and modeled another IP game around it. So really like Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition. I can highly recommend this game to pretty much anybody, and that's why it made my number 2.
Nice. Honorable mentions. I have a lot of honorable mentions to discuss in here. As I mentioned, there was like 21 or 22, something like that, of games that didn't quite make the list.
You should go through all yours because I've only got 3.
Yeah, I have a lot. I'm not going to talk about all of them. Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition is on that list.
Yep.
Toy Story Obstacles and Adventures is on that list, which is basically the equivalent of Harry Potter.
Yep.
The Batman Gotham City Chronicles game, which is huge.
Huge game.
Like,
huge miniature
it takes 2 full boxes just to play the base game,
It's
and
ridiculous.
I fit in as many expansions as I could in those 2 boxes by removing all the inserts because I'm crazy. But it's fun. I like it. The Dark Souls board game, because I love that video game series.
Right.
It's great.
I actually thought that one would make your list.
I know. Resident Evil 2, the board game, also the same designers, Steam Forged Games. I like that, the Resident Evil property as well. Mechs vs. Minions is on here. I didn't include it because I wasn't sure about the whole video game thing.
Yeah, sure.
But that's really the only reason. Jaws, which was a fairly recent game
Prospero
from
Hall,
Prospero Hall.
Yeah, I haven't played that one yet.
It's fairly light, but it has 2 different acts to it, because it's like you could play the first part of the movie where they're on the island and like trying to find out where the shark is on different beaches as it's trying to kill as many swimmers as possible. And then the second half of the game, Act 2, where the board on the back is the ship. And there's tiles that represent like the different levels of destruction that the ship is undergoing.
Breaking apart.
Yeah, because the shark can destroy the ship or try to kill everybody. Either one, and the shark wins.
Yeah.
It's great. It's fun. I like the movie. I like the game because it's very thematic and follows that really well. And it's not that heavy. I put The Shining on here because it's also another Prospero Hall game that's based on a really great movie.
It's good. It's like an escape room game with story elements to it too.
So there's actually 2 Shining games.
Oh yeah, which one is this one? I was gonna say, which one did we play? We played the Choose Your Adventure. It was the hotel one. It had the
Escape
hotel name.
the Overlook Hotel.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, that's like an escape room, a coded chronicles game where you're looking up in journals, like from the different codes that you find around, with your combining your character's action with the 3-digit codes on the maps and stuff.
Yeah, that's the only one.
It's fun. I did do a great tutorial on The Shining, the other game that's just called The Shining, and it's a cooperative with a trader, and it's pretty streamlined, and I mean it's really popular, but it's pretty light. It's not that heavy of a game. It's fun. So I put that on here. And I think lastly, Horrified, which is also fairly new.
Yeah. You're right. The first game is based on Universal Monsters. Yeah,
Universal Monsters. So that's based on that.
Yeah.
And, I enjoy it. I do think it's a great game, but maybe not top 10.
Yeah, I think I like the American Monsters version of Horrified better, so that's why the original didn't make my game.
Yeah.
That would have been an honorable mention. You're right.
Yep.
Fear of Dracula was another honorable mention. And then the 2 games I have not played that are 2 of my favorite IPs are the one I mentioned that was based off the Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition engine is Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth.
Oh, yeah.
So that is very, very much similar to Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition.
Cool.
But I haven't played it. And then Imperial Assault.
Right.
Which is a
that's the other Star Wars game that I like.
Yeah, Star Wars sort of dungeon crawler version that I think is now app assisted as well.
Yeah.
So those are 2 games I definitely want to check out.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah. So on to our number 1.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Number 1.
My number one game is based on an IP of a really popular movie out right now. And
I know what it is.
It's also was my favorite game of 2020.
I completely forgot to put it on the list.
Did you? This might have made yours.
It would have.
This might have made yours.
It probably would have.
Yeah, and this is Dune Imperium.
That's classic.
Dune Imperium.
Oh, so good.
This game, every time I play this game, it's just better and better and better. I just got my expansion
Nice.
for the
upgrades?
upgrade kit.
Ooh.
Just came in the mail.
I can't wait.
Which was delayed forever.
Yes.
It has little miniatures and different things
Very cool.
to try to weave some theme into the game.
For those who only saw the cubes,
it
like,
was
what is this?
lacking kind of a lot when it came to components.
Yeah,
But
the game is so good.
it's really good. It's a deck builder by the same designer who designed Clank, another one of my favorite games. This one just ratchets up the tension of the first person to get 10 points wins. I mean that's really the whole game.
It's a race.
Yeah, there's combat in this game that reminds me a little bit of Blood Rage. There's it's a worker placement, has that same sort of use cards for worker placement or for combat that Lost Ruins of Arnak has as well. Although I still don't compare those two games very well, other than mechanisms. But just the strategy of the way you use your cards, the way you manage your hand, the way you buy upgraded cards, just such a great game. It's definitely, I'd say this is in my top 10 games of all time.
Nice.
At this point. So I love it. I know there's an expansion out now called
Rise of Ix.
Something of Ix. Yeah, IX. It adds a lot of content and extra boards, but I'm just not tired of regular Dune Imperium yet. So I'm going to play that for a while until the expansion gets cheaper. But
cool.
It's my number one, Dune Imperium.
Nice. My number one pick I'm excited about. It's based on a book series, but also a show. And it's really popular as far as the IP, but the game doesn't get played, I think, as much as it should because it is a very long sort of diplomatic and war game.
Pokemon? Sorry.
Dude, shut your hole. And what book is Pokemon? What book series is that?
It was a comic book series or something?
No. It was a Game Boy game, and then it was a card game, and now it's everything.
It is everything. Oh, that's ridiculous. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Anyway, all the build-up that I did is now wasted. Thank you.
Sorry, I just totally deflated. Rained right on that parade.
This is based on George R.R.R. Martin, the Game of Thrones.
This is the
board game.
Oh, okay.
Game of Thrones, the board game.
Okay.
2nd edition.
Number one. Wow.
Number one. I think it's the best IP-themed game. It does it so well. And technically, the way that the game is created in the art and all that, it's really more based on the books than the show. So books.
Okay, got it.
And you can play as any of the main houses in the book, and you're trying to take control over various areas, sort of like just a risk type area control game, but it's done diplomatically and not with dice rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can sort of negotiate on what you do and where you want to go, and everyone plans what they're going to do with placing tokens on the board face down, and then you reveal them and see where everyone's going. And it's a lot of fun. It's really strategic. There's cards to play that do various actions as well, and you can earn like control of the throne, control of the raven, and I think the sword. And so there's different bonuses that are attributed to the player who controls those. And then there's supplies that you need to gather. So there's certain places on the map that you need to be able to, be to collect. And then of course there's the war and battles itself. And sometimes you can partner with people and say, like, do you want to come in on this battle and help me? Mm-hmm. And then if you do a battle, I'll help you in the next one. But nothing is binding.
Yes.
And that's what makes this game so fun is it's really a diplomatic war game, but it's themed after something that a lot of people are familiar with now and really enjoy. There is an expansion that I have called Mother of Dragons where you can add in the dragons and everything that has to do with that. I hear that it makes it a little unbalanced if you play as that team, But
Daenerys and her
yeah,
race or
Daenerys, yeah.
whatever. Okay.
And I don't know. I haven't tried it, but it does look cool, and it adds another board because you have to cross the water
That's right.
to get to that land. And so there's water battles in the game and land battles, and it's just pretty. It's epic. I mean, it's
I've actually played this game surprisingly, and I enjoyed it as well.
Good.
Even though like war games like that aren't really typically the ones I gravitate to.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing as you were talking is I was thinking, I don't think I've ever played a bad Game of Thrones game, which is funny because I've also played the Game of Thrones Risk, which is or not Risk, Catan. Game of Thrones Catan, which is actually pretty good.
Really?
It'd be my preferred way to play Catan. And I've also played the card game, the Bruno Cathala card game, which is a really good card game as well. So I can see why you picked this for number one.
Yeah, I mean, it's epic.
It is, and it can be a longer game too because of the fact that there's like a specific win condition, right?
Yeah, it takes a while to kind of build up what you need.
Yeah.
But there's also sort of I didn't mention this, but there's the north that starts pressing down and tries to attack, and you have to sort of like work together secretly. And there's like a not a bid, but like you reveal how much you're contributing towards keeping them out. And so that's always a unique, interesting part.
Yeah, I think it does a great job of mixing that sort of cooperation element, even though you're all trying to win separately, with, like you said, the ability for at any time somebody to just break that alliance, you know. So that's a great pick. I like that. Yeah, that's a good pick. I never thought of this one, but you're right. You have mentioned how much you like that one in the past. So good. Number one.
So that's our list. We've covered
top 10 IP games.
Up to 20 games.
And I was really impressed by how many games you have based on books or novels.
Right?
Yeah, very impressed with that.
I was surprised too.
I gotta say, yeah, that was good.
I made that list and I was like, these, and then I looked at them like, you know what? These are a lot of books.
yeah, and it's funny. There were some that I didn't even think of, like Pillars of the Earth, things like that that were really good.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and The Godfather technically is a book too.
It is, yeah.
So
yeah, you're right.
7 if you want to count that.
Yeah. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Yeah, if I could come up, I just don't think I could do. I could probably do a top 10 based on books, but that's about it. I don't think.
I think we'd have too many crossovers to make it.
I couldn't get a top 10. Yeah. But so thank you all for watching. This was another really fun top 10 list. We'd love to get your ideas in the comments of other top 10s or topical discussions. We've had a couple of those as well that you might be interested in. And if there's an IP game that we didn't mention, I know a lot of Back to the Future fans or Goonies fans, there's just a ton of really great IP games that are available at places like Target today. So
it's true.
It's definitely starting to turn the tide on IP games as being thought of as bad games traditionally versus ones that now they're making really good stuff. So.
Yeah, now I think that stigma's sort of going away. Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, because when I got into the hobby just a few years ago, there weren't many good IP games. There just really weren't. So anyway, thanks so much for listening. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a like, subscribe, and check out Meeple Mentor's other fantastic videos, tutorials, unboxings, and we've got some good stuff coming up on the podcast as well with game designer interviews and a lot of other fun stuff. So for this episode, I've been Jay.
I'm Jared.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening.
Bye, y'all.